400 years, Spain ruled Puerto Rico. For the next 54 years, the island was a United States territory. In 1952, the people of Puerto Rico voted to become a self-governed free state in association with the United States, and the country began a dramatic economic expansion. But Luis Muñoz Marin, Puerto Rico's first elected governor, said, "A people cannot be fully civilized until the economy is the servant of the people's culture and not its master." And so the old Spanish city of San Juan was restored. Museums of arts and history were established. The works of artists and folk craftsmen encouraged. This restoration was not only of historic sites, but of a people's pride. It gave them a new sense of identity with their own rich cultural heritage. And it was accomplished chiefly through the vision and dedication of one man, Dr. Ricardo Alegria. In 1974, Dr. Alegria was appointed by Governor Hernandez Colon as head of a newly created Office of Cultural Affairs to coordinate and advise on all cultural activities of the Puerto Rican government. For the 17 years prior to that, he was executive director of the Institute of Puerto Rican Culture.
The government of Puerto Rico decided to preserve our own national culture and established the institute dedicated exclusively to the preservation and enrichment of Puerto Rican culture. It's very important for countries that are emerging from colonialism to know more about their own history, about their own culture, to give people pride in their own cultural heritage. I want to show you a very old Puerto Rican crucifix that was taken to Spain by one of our bishops in the 18th century. I found it in Spain in the shop of a gypsy, and I was able to buy it and bring it back to Puerto Rico. This building was originally built during the Spanish regime for a hospital, and until a few years ago it was a rum factory. They wanted to demolish the building to put in a hotel. The institute, because of its power, declared it a historical monument, and we were able to buy the building and restore it, not only to preserve its architectural significance, but also to house the archive and general library of Puerto Rico. This is an 18th century building. The owner wanted to demolish, and the institute had to expropriate to restore it as a museum of the Puerto Rican family. This is the children's room. The crib was donated by my wife's family, and she was the last one to use it. This is the living room. In the 19th century, it was fashionable for the young Puerto Rican ladies to play the piano the music of our leading composers. It's true that I'm an introvert, I would say. For me, it's very difficult to be in the public eye, and I don't attend many activities which some people think I'm supposed to. And you won't see me in the places where most of the people are here in Puerto Rico, in the nightclubs or hotels or things like that. And even some of the cultural activities, even those that I am behind the activity, sometimes I'm not present. Marchando bien. ¿Ya Tomás tiene todo preparado?
Sí, está todo perfecto.
Ya deben estar para llegar de un momento a otro. Viene Irene con los músicos de Luis Aldea, que estamos esperando. Oye, te parece que están tocando a la puerta, así que yo voy a ver. My background in anthropology has given me an understanding that culture is more than the refinements of music or of literature, that it includes also the folk arts, the popular expressions.
Portacelli in San Germán, built in 1606 by the Spaniards, restored by the Institute of Culture under the direction of Dr. Alegria as a museum of Puerto Rican religious art.
Since the beginning, we realized that to make our program successful, we have to go to the people, to the small town, to the rural areas, and we have been organizing cultural centers all over the island, and at this moment we have 77 which produce plays, concerts, and do a lot of cultural activities. And that's the idea that has been behind the Institute, that in the same time that we are interested in sponsoring a symphony concert, we are also dealing with the folk expressions of the people of Puerto Rico.
Adrian Irizarry Gonzalez is a guiro maker from San Germán. The Institute of Culture will grant him loans and buy his work for sale in their shops, as they do for other folk artists, to encourage their work and keep the culture of the people alive.
A jallarlo.
Chévere. Darte un...
Bueno, yo voy a tratar. Dale.
Yo lo sujeto aquí para que tenga mejor forma.
Tienen que ser 2 líneas para ganar.
Exacto.
O sea, que solamente usa la línea como
Una
guía.
nada más. Una o 2, lo más.
Adrian is going to San Germán, where a troubadour contest, sponsored by the Institute of Culture, is being held. The contestants, all local citizens, will improvise an ancient Spanish form called a decima, consisting of 10-line stanzas, each ending on the same line. Here, in San Germán, every man can be a poet.
Aquí, en la antigua plazoleta de la Iglesia Católica de San Germán, este concurso de trovadores, como ustedes bien saben, tiene como objetivo desarrollar el talento puertorriqueño.
Ay, señores, yo voy a hablar. Señores, yo voy a hablar. Que no me han asignado premio. Pero yo tengo el recuerdo que me atrevería a cantar. A repetir lo mental, a repetir lo mental en este jardín de flores.
En los sueños más serenos, yo vi a tus queridos padres y te vi a ti como un ángel en los jardines de Venus. Te vi brillar como el cielo, te vi brillar como el cielo, toda cubierta de gala. Te contemplé, hermosa dama, dentro de los ruiseñores, contemplando mis amores en una fresca mañana. Gracias. Muchísimas gracias.
Lorenzo Homar is one of the leading graphic artists of Puerto Rico. He created the illustrations for a children's book Dr. Alegria wrote called The Renegades. It is a fable based on Puerto Rican folklore. Once upon a time, when God still walked the earth, one family of animals that ran became envious of those that flew and wished to become like them. God, in his wisdom, had made all things different and unique. He was saddened by these creatures' envy and refused to change their form. The evil one wanted to use their envy for his own ends and appeared before these renegades to grant their wish. But the devil, unlike God, could not create. So he stretched their skin into grotesque wings and made their bodies into his own image. The renegades were filled with pride and showed off their new wings to the other creatures of the land. To their surprise, They fled in horror. But the renegades felt superior to the others and full of hate. They flew into the skies. When the birds saw those featherless creatures cast in the devil's image, they fled in fear. Only then did the renegades see that in trying to undo what the Creator made, they had become a monstrosity. They belonged to no family, and every animal of the land and air despised them. Fearful and humiliated, they lived in darkness and emerged only at night. Today, in our language, we call them bats. The Renegades is an allegory. Dr. Alegria wrote it for the Puerto Rican people, lest they forget the richness of their own cultural heritage, the mixture of the Spanish, the Indian, and the black. Ricardo Alegria's search for the roots of his people's culture led him to the Puerto Rican rainforest long before his appointment as director of the Office of Cultural Affairs.
This site of Utuado is one of the most important archaeological sites in the West Indies because it was where for the first time the Europeans saw the use of the rubber ball used by the Indians to play a ceremonial game. When I visited this site in 1949, I excavated the whole site, but the land was in private hands, and I was afraid that they will destroy the archaeological site. So I decided to bury it again, and it was not until a few years later, when I was already the director of the Institute, that I was able to obtain the funds to expropriate the land and restore it as a national park. When I came to the university in 1947 as a young professor, as an archaeologist, that was one of my first major excavations in Puerto Rico. So I always feel that I'm going back to where I was initiated. I think I need a lot of time to write about my own research in archaeology, in folklore, in history. But I'm involved in so many activities now that I have been really unable to do more work as I would like. But I always think that I will have the time someday.